Welcome to the Krusty Fox, and today we're wincing at the engorged mess that is Season 2, Episode 9 of Sex and the City, entitled Old Dogs, New Dicks. This episode deals with this relationship problem, this downstairs situation, and this awkward ex encounter. Click the link on screen now to catch up on all the chaos from the very beginning, subscribe for more every week, and stick around until the very end for last week's top comment and this week's question. Carrie begins by proposing that they, and I'm presuming they are the voices in her head, say that women in New York are the most beautiful in the world. She believes that this must be the reason why the menfolk of NYC can't keep their perverted eyes off them. While enjoying a pretzel in the park with Samantha, Carrie divulges the reason that this is playing on her mind. Apparently, Mr. Big can't stop eye-fucking other women when they're out and about together. Carrie needn't worry, of course, because she's in a very small circle of people who wouldn't run screaming into traffic if they caught Big giving them the eye. When Samantha advises her that changing a man is impossible, Carrie suggests that there's always room to manipulate and cajole, which is about as good a summary of her personality as you're ever likely to hear. In the early hours at the Hobbs House of Horrors, Miranda's startled awake by new boyfriend Steve's arrival. We're led to believe that their opposing schedules are wiping Miranda out, but I'm fairly sure the main problem is how it eats into the time she usually spends stitching together her man suit. When Steve puts the early morning moves on Miranda, Carrie's voiceover horrendously tells us that the only thing Miss Hobbs likes inside of her in the morning is a cup of takeout coffee, which I'll be filling back up with my vomit as soon as she's done with it. Charlotte is also seeing someone new. Feared restaurant critic Mike, whose 5-whisk rating system disturbingly makes its way into his pillow talk. Charlotte overlooks it, mostly because she's focused on getting Mike to use his more literal utensil to scramble her eggs. We sail headlong into problematic territory, however, when Charlotte's hands take a wander down south and she discovers that Mike's fudge bar is still in its wrapper, if you follow. She explains her hysterical horror over lunch with the ladies the next day, starting off strong right out of the gate by comparing it to a Shar-Pei and asking what went wrong. Carrie reminds her that most men haven't had a little skimmed off the top, which does little to derail her spam dagger shaming. Just to get this out of the way for those who aren't in the know, according to the World Health Organization, the USA's rate for lopping off snoods is anywhere up to 92%. In Western Europe, it's 20% or less. And in the course of researching those figures, I was forced to bear witness to this truly upsetting Google search suggestion. I can only assume that somebody was brainstorming solutions after seeing Prince Charles's hot dog fingers. Later on, Carrie's annoyance with Big's inattentiveness boils over. His over-the-shoulder lusting after a woman dressed like she's on her way to beat $100 bills out of married bankers almost provokes Carrie into telling him the truth, but she chickens out. At home, Carrie word vomits out this week's column and wonders why it seems so hard for Big to change how he acts around her. She boils this down into the question, can you change a man? I assume Big is across town, frantically searching Ask Jeeves for the question, how do you fake your death? Coincidentally, Charlotte the body shamer is already on a mission to answer Carrie's question. On another date with Mike, the knowledge that he's sporting an inch or two extra causes her to recoil from a kiss like he just told her he voted Democrat. Noticing her disgust, Mike reveals that he's decided to get circumcised, saying that he's been uncomfortable long enough. Here's a tip, idiot. Wash properly. Charlotte, who last season tried to persuade a man to go cold turkey from Prozac, declares that Mike's willingness to have his wang carved up, seemingly just for her, is sweet. I'm assuming she'll need the leftovers to use in some waspy summoning circle to reanimate whichever Kennedy is the best marriage prospect. The following Saturday, the ladies attend drag bingo at their favourite bar, and Miranda shares her exasperation with Steve's predilection for pre-noon nookie. Charlotte, who clearly thinks she's some relationship shaman now, prescribes that they schedule time to stick Spurt Reynolds in the slot box. Just then, Miranda's old flame Brad sachets by, now a drag queen styled after her and calling himself by her name. I would spend more time talking about it, but it's another potentially interesting Samantha moment left hanging with no follow-through, like dosing your archenemy's dessert with X-Lax only for them to leave before the backdoor fireworks begin. Afterwards, Carrie goes to meet Big, who turns up half an hour late, in the process making her feel like a hooker as she waits in his lobby. I'm not a stylist, but if she wasn't going for great value escort, then she could have worn something other than sequins and tiger print. Halfway through a sleepless night in their now dead bedroom, something wonderful happens. Big rolls over, catapults Carrie out of bed, and in response, she goes full Sex and the Street Fighter on his nose.
Fight! I will finish this. Scream in pain.
He retreats to the couch to avoid any more cartilage being forced up into his brain, but Carrie follows him there with an ice pack. As she stands over him, melting ice dripping onto his forehead, it's all a bit reminiscent of Chinese water torture, which is a decent metaphor for their relationship, come to think of it. She finally says out loud all the things about him that annoy her. Checking out other women, not staying at her place, not giving her a key to his apartment. She also admits, in a rare moment of post-punch clarity, that none of this is on him because she never actually tells him what's bothering her. Doing absolutely nothing for her rep in the building as a lady of the night, she makes a 4 AM exit. The next night, Charlotte grills Mike about his dong degloving in what turns out to be a lead-in to a request for some newly skin-free salmon smacking. Unfortunately, the old scabby mayonnaise revolver isn't quite ready for action, and just a kiss is painful enough to send him scurrying back into his apartment alone. Across town, Miranda is 5 coffees deep and lying in wait for Steve so that they can go back to knobbing at night. When he commits the crime of snoozing while she retrieves wine, he wakes to find Murder Miranda looming over him. He wisely retreats back to his apartment while all of his limbs are still attached. Later on, Charlotte finally has her way with Mike's new sludge slinger, but post-coitus, she discovers that she's accidentally broadened his horizons. Now that he has an apparently more palatable pig sticker, he wants to share it with the city's likely not very eager women. The lesson, of course, being, if you wouldn't want somebody commenting on your fleshy fault line, don't pass judgment on their fun truncheon. Elsewhere, there's a knock at Carrie's door, which surprisingly isn't one of the misguided women who followed her column's advice seeking revenge. It's Big, who's come by to, shock horror, tell her there are things he dislikes about her too. Somehow he manages to cut this list down to just Carrie's habit of eating oranges in his bed, and basically implies that he hasn't changed because he doesn't want to. It's not exactly a world-changing piece of soul-searching, but given who we're talking about here, you've got to take what you can get. His one concession is that he stays the night at her place for the first time, which he celebrates by smoking a cigar in her bed while she messily eats oranges next to him. Remind me, please, why we're supposed to think anyone would want to be with either of these people. Back at Miranda's, Steve calls from outside his bar so that they can look up at a rare blue moon together. This romantic gesture proves enough to lower her Fort Knox level defenses, so she invites him back over and gives up on her rules about daybreak king. Carrie's closing voiceover notes that while it might be impossible to change a man, you can sometimes change a woman, which in terms of sending progressive messages to a predominantly female audience comes off less Erin Brockovich and more Grease. But it's worth remembering that it was the audience who decided that this series was any sort of feminist touchstone, seemingly in direct conflict with its actual content. Then again, it was the 90s, and a culture that was also responsible for the rise of jorts, sweater vests, and Tommy Hilfiger really shouldn't be trusted with anything. And so, we reach the end of another episode. If you enjoyed yourself, why not drop a like, subscribe for more every week, and share these videos with your nearest, dearest, and most foreskinned. Last week, I asked you whether any of Big's behaviour in the episode was a sign of improvement or just a rest stop on the road to relationship hell. Wonderfully named commenter, Sparky Nutters, reckons it's all in Carrie's increasingly desperate head, like she's black swanning herself. All fine by me, so long as we don't have to watch her do ballet. This week's question is, were any of Carrie's, Charlotte, or Miranda's requests for change of the men in their lives acceptable, or were some of them a bridge too far? Answers in the comments below please, and the best will make an appearance in the next video. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.